nice to see you again.
How you doing, Farmer?
I'm doing just fine, Harry. Did you see...
Every now and then, we are reminded that it's not all glitz and glamour. From tragic accidents to mystery cases, here are the 23 worst ways old Hollywood actors have died.
Mr. Helm?
Yes.
I'm Freya. Welcome to Denmark, Mr. Helm.
Number 23, Sharon Tate. Sharon Tate was an American actress and model who became a symbol of the 1960s Hollywood scene. Born in January 1943, she began modeling in her late teens and quickly transitioned into acting. She found moderate success in films like Valley of the Dolls and The Fearless Vampire Killers. Her beauty and talent made her one of the most promising actresses of her time. In 1968, Tate married acclaimed director Roman Polanski, whom she met while working on The Fearless Vampire Killers. The couple became part of the Hollywood elite and were often seen at high-profile events. Sadly, it was the beginning of the end for her. In August 1969, Tate was 8.5 months pregnant and living in a rented house that she and Polanski shared. On the night of August 8th, while Polanski was in Europe working on a film, Tate was at home with several friends. That night, members of the so-called Manson family, a cult led by Charles Manson, broke into the house. Manson was a delusional man who ordered his followers to commit murders to incite chaos and fear. Unfortunately, Tate's home had once been rented by music producer Terry Melcher, who had refused to advance Manson's musical ambitions. 4 of Manson's followers arrived at the house and brutally murdered Tate and her friends. Despite pleading for her life and the life of her unborn child, she was stabbed multiple times. The murders were incredibly violent, and the crime shocked the world.
Will you go get me a suit someplace? I'm gonna get some shut-eye before the bed cools.
It's your suit, Rocky. I ain't got any dough.
So?
Number 22, Sal Mino. Sal Mino is an acclaimed actor best known for his role in the 1955 classic Rebel Without a Cause. Before his death in 1976, he was a young actor who tried to navigate his way through the difficulties that LGBT+ actors faced during Hollywood's golden age. Sal Mino rose to fame with his portrayal of Plato in Rebel Without a Cause. He even went on to receive an Academy Award nomination for that role. He quickly became a teen idol and appeared in numerous films and television shows, including Giant in 1956 and Exodus later in 1960. While the latter earned him another Oscar nomination, there is no denying that his ever-present boyish charm and intense performances made him a beloved figure in Hollywood. You would think that Mino had it all, but you would be wrong. The times were not on his side, and being completely himself was not something he could afford, so he kept a big part of his identity a secret. However, his close relationship with James Dean was eventually rumored to be sexual. These rumors created a tension that only added complexity to his public and private life. To deflect suspicion about his sexuality, Mino made sure that he was seen with women in public. Sadly, that's not the story here. Sal Mino's life ended tragically when he was murdered in 1976. On the night of February 12, 1976, Mino was returning home from a rehearsal at 10 p.m. He parked his car in the carport below his West Hollywood apartment, but was almost immediately stabbed in the heart by a mugger. Mino was found lying and bleeding profusely in the parking alley by his neighbor Raymond Evans, who had heard his cries for help. Mino was only able to walk a few steps, after which he collapsed immediately and died of a massive hemorrhage. He was only 37 years old. In the years following his death, Mino became an emblematic figure in the history of LGBTQ+ actors in Hollywood, as he represented both the immense talent and the personal hardships experienced by many. Number 21, Vic Morrow. Vic Morrow was an American actor and director renowned for his role as Sergeant Chip Sanders in the television show Combat. From 1962 to 1967, this role made him a household name. Morrow also appeared in other films and was particularly known for his tough guy persona. Sadly, it was one of such films that cost him his life. Vic Morrow tragically died in a helicopter accident on July 23, 1982, while filming Twilight Zone, the movie. The film was an anthology based on the popular 1960s television series The Twilight Zone, and Morrow was cast in one of the segments. Now, there was this scene where his character was supposed to rescue 2 Vietnamese children from a village during a helicopter attack. The special effects involved explosions and low-flying helicopters. On the night of July 23rd, Morrow was carrying the two child actors, 7-year-old Micah Din Lee and 6-year-old Renee Shin Yi Chen, across a riverbed while a helicopter hovered above. Special effects explosions were set off, but the blasts caused the helicopter to lose control. This caused the plane to crash into the actors below. Morrow and the two children were struck by the helicopter's rotor blades, killing all three instantly.
No, I can't really. Oops, that's not the way we're supposed to do that. That's called the bunny dip.
Number 20, Dorothy Stratton. After being discovered as a teenager, Dorothy Stratton rose to fame in the late 1970s. She was discovered by Paul Snider, a small-time promoter who became her manager and would later become her husband. Stratton gained widespread attention after being named Playboy magazine's Playmate of the Month for August 1979, and later Playmate of the Year in 1980. Her rising fame led to acting roles in films like Galaxina and They All Laughed. She was widely seen as a rising star with the potential to become a successful actress. Sadly, it was a brief career. Her life and career were tragically cut short in 1980 when she was murdered by her estranged husband, Paul Snider. Dorothy Stratton's tragic death on August 14, 1980, was the result of a series of toxic dynamics and escalating jealousy within her relationship with Paul Snider. Paul Snider was the one who first recognized Stratton's beauty and potential, but as her career skyrocketed, his control and possessiveness over her grew. He was threatened by her success. Stratton eventually moved in with her new man, ultimately leaving Snider and their tumultuous marriage behind. Snider became enraged, and in a fit of jealousy, he shot Stratton with a shotgun before turning the gun on himself. Stratton did not survive this murder-suicide. She was only 20 years old.
It's nice to see you again.
How you doing, Farmer?
I'm doing just fine, Harry. Did you see...
Number 19, Frances Farmer. Frances Farmer was a talented American actress. Sadly, her success was almost eclipsed by controversy and significant personal struggles, especially with mental health. Frances Farmer was born in Seattle, Washington in the year 1913. Even at a young age, she was seen as intelligent, rebellious, and highly independent. She won a high-profile essay contest in high school with a piece called God Dies. It reflected her atheistic learnings and was also controversial for the time. Her acting talent was also undeniable, so much so that by the 1930s she was already considered a rising star in Hollywood. She signed a contract with Paramount Pictures in 1936, and the rest, of course, was history. Aside from her independent spirit and refusal to conform to Hollywood's expectations, she also struggled with her mental health. She had public outbursts and altercations with the police and displayed other erratic behaviors. Eventually, she spent time in mental institutions that did not understand her condition and subjected her to abusive treatment like electroconvulsive therapy. After being released from the institution, Farmer tried again to regain her career and her life, but she could never achieve the same level of success. Her health continued to decline due to alcoholism and the lasting trauma of her institutionalization. Farmer spent her final years living a relatively quiet life away from the public eye. She died of esophageal cancer in 1970 at the age of 56. It was a tragic end to a life that had struggled with so much for too long.
Dennis, why don't you go and sit at the kids' table?
Make me.
Number 18, Phil Hartman. Renowned actor, comedian, screenwriter, and graphic artist, Phil Hartman could do it all. He first gained widespread recognition for his versatility as a comedic performer, then went on to join the cast of Saturday Night Live from 1986 to 1994. He also played iconic roles like his impersonation of Bill Clinton and the characters Troy McClure and Lionel Hutz on The Simpsons. Hartman's career was undoubtedly thriving in the 1990s, but tragedy struck in May 1998. Hartman was killed in a murder-suicide by his wife, Bryn Omdahl Hartman. The tragedy took place in their home in Encino, California. Hartman was asleep when his wife Bryn entered the room and shot him 3 times, twice in the head and once in the chest. After the murder, Bryn drove to a friend's house and confessed to the killing. She later returned to the home and took her own life with the same gun. This was a tragedy in every sense. She had long struggled with substance abuse and mental health issues. She was also reportedly insecure about her career and felt overshadowed by her husband's success. Hartman was 49 years old, but still so full of life.
Miss Costa, I didn't expect you home so soon.
Number 17, Jane Mansfield. Mansfield was an American actress who became famous for her bombshell persona. In fact, she was often compared to the likes of Marilyn Monroe. She was known for her platinum blonde hair, hourglass figure, and comedic talent. Her breakup role was in the Broadway production Will Success Spoil Rock Hunter? The Girl Can't Help It, Too Hot to Handle, and these are just a few of her outstanding works. She also became famous for her publicity stunts, which helped maintain her status in the public eye. Even when her film prominence started to diminish, Mansfield remained a popular figure in tabloids and gossip columns until her untimely death in June 1967. Jane Mansfield died in a tragic car accident that occurred on U.S. Highway 90 near New Orleans, Louisiana, as she was traveling from Biloxi, Mississippi. She had just performed at a nightclub in New Orleans for a television appearance. Mansfield was riding in the front seat of a 1966 Buick Electra with her boyfriend, attorney Sam Brody. Her 3 kids from an estranged marriage were sleeping in the back seat. As the car traveled through the night, they encountered a fog bank created by a mosquito fogging truck. With visibility significantly reduced, their car collided with the rear end of a tractor-trailer. The top of the car was sheared off, instantly killing Mansfield and Brody. The children who were sleeping in the back seat were shielded by the seat and survived. The young starlet was only 34.
See, it's crowded.
Well, I am.
Look, Marge is gonna be at the Calico Inn later. Ain't there no way you can get out of here?
Number 16, Montgomery Clift. It goes without saying that a huge part of Montgomery Clift's career, like that of many attractive actors, relied heavily on his appearance. The 4-time Academy Award nominee was known for his perfect portrayals of sensitive young men. Just like Marlon Brando and James Dean, Clift was considered one of the original method actors. Sadly, his enviable career was ultimately cut short by a terrible tragedy. While returning home from a party hosted by co-star and close friend Elizabeth Taylor, Clift was involved in a near-fatal accident. The accident left Clift not only disfigured, but also with 2 front teeth lodged in his throat, risking suffocation. 1 tooth reportedly pierced his tongue, while his nose and jaw were both broken. As the story goes, it was Taylor who rushed to the scene and squeezed into the car that saved his life. He had reportedly been choking by a tooth that had gone down his throat. Considering the technology at the time, the surgeons did an admirable job on his face. Still, it was impossible to ignore the noticeable scarring that remained. Additionally, the left side of his face was left largely paralyzed. As such, filmmakers had to shoot him from the opposite side whenever possible in his post-accident films. In essence, his career as a romantic lead, which had been his primary focus up to that point, was effectively derailed. This would be a difficult realization for any actor to accept. We mean even stars who naturally transition out of such roles due to aging have a hard time at it. So imagine the added emotional burden of grappling with the aftermath of a truly horrific car accident. To make matters worse, his friends had to shield him from the prying eyes of the press, who had arrived on the scene even before the ambulance. Enduring such a traumatic experience and remaining unaffected by the toll it takes on their psyche is almost impossible. That said, the accident essentially triggered what Robert Lewis famously referred to as the longest suicide in Hollywood history. Clift's pre-existing alcoholism was only exacerbated by the accident. Top that off with a newfound reliance on various painkillers, then you can see the makings of a destructive cycle. As his condition worsened, fewer people were willing to associate with him, leaving only a small group of friends who remained loyal until the end. Montgomery Clift's story stands out as one of the greatest tragedies of that era in Hollywood, with his ultimate downfall seemingly inevitable from the moment of the crash.
Steve! Oh, Steve! Trying to break up.
Number 15, Thelma Todd. From acting to comedy, there is no denying that Thelma Todd had a time in Hollywood. Known as the Ice Cream Blonde and Hot Toddy, she had a successful career in the late 1920s and early 1930s. Todd appeared in over 100 films, including notable comedies like Monkey Business and Horse Feathers. Todd's career began during the transition from silent films to talkies, and she quickly became a popular figure in Hollywood for her beauty and comedic timing. She also ran a successful restaurant, Thelma Todd's Sidewalk Cafe, which became a hotspot for celebrities. Sadly, all that success was cut short when she died in December 1935 at the age of 29. She was found dead in her car inside a garage owned by her lover, a film director named Roland West. The coroner's investigation concluded that Todd had sat in her car with the engine running, possibly to stay warm in the cold garage. The coroner's inquest ruled her death as accidental, with no evidence of foul play. The idea was that Todd, either drunk or tired, may have inadvertently started the car to warm herself, only to succumb to carbon monoxide fumes. Despite the official ruling, many speculated that Thelma committed suicide, while others think her lover had a hand in it.
Well, Willie, it's lucky for the husbands of Vienna that you're going to get married and settle down.
Who said I was going to settle down? Give me the sponge.
Oh, yes, sir. Anybody would think you...
Number 14, Roman Navaro. Born Jose Ramon Gil Samaniego, Ramon Navaro was a major box office star in the 1920s and 1930s. Remember, this was Hollywood's silent film era and the early years of sound films. One thing about Navaro, he was often cast as a romantic lead and sex symbol, and these were roles that capitalized on his good looks and charm. One of such is his epic role in the 1925 classic Ben-Hur, A Tale of the Christ. But despite being a prominent actor, his career was not without its challenges, and one of such is the fact that he led a complex life as a closeted gay man. As a Mexican-American actor, Navaro also faced racial and cultural barriers. Being an immigrant in Hollywood added another layer of complexity to his public and private personas. So despite his easygoing public persona, Navaro's private life was marked by his homosexuality and how he had to keep it a secret. There was also speculation that the necessity of maintaining this secrecy likely caused significant personal strain and isolation. Navaro was murdered on October 30th, 1968. The culprits were two brothers, Paul and Tom Ferguson, aged 22 and 17. As the story goes, they had called him and offered their sexual services. The thing is, Navaro had once hired prostitutes from an agency to come to his Laurel Canyon home. Somehow, the Fergusons were able to obtain Navaro's telephone number from a previous guest. According to the prosecution in the murder case, the two young men believed that a large sum of money was hidden in Navaro's house. The prosecution also accused the brothers of torturing Navaro for several hours to force him to reveal where the non-existent money was hidden. They left the house with $20 they took from his bathrobe pocket. Sadly, Navaro had died as a result of asphyxiation, having choked to death on his own blood after being beaten. He was 69 years old. The two perpetrators were caught and sentenced to long prison terms but were released on parole in the mid-1970s. Both were later rearrested for unrelated crimes for which they served longer prison terms than for the murder of Navaro. At the end of the day, his legacy endured as a trailblazer who achieved significant success in an industry and era that was hostile to both his ethnicity and his sexuality.
See that star right underneath the 7? That's my papa's signature.
Number 13, Natalie Wood. Natalie Wood was a true American sweetheart. She began acting as a child and was able to successfully transition to young adult roles in Hollywood. But if the plethora of rumors and conjecture are to be believed, then Natalie Wood's childhood was actually less than ideal. It is said that she was haunted by the absence of her father and the dominating presence of her mother, Maria. Maria was a determined Russian immigrant. As the story goes, she assumed total control over Natalie's life and career. She acted as both her manager and guardian. While this is pretty common and nobody would bat an eye at it, Maria carried out both duties very sternly. She would dictate Natalie's professional endeavors and prioritize her success over emotional well-being. A harsh price to pay, but it was one that Natalie Wood paid in full. In time, she rose to the top echelon of Hollywood and became a respected actress in the industry. Well, that was until the 1970s, when she began a hiatus from film and had two daughters. On November 29, 1981, Wood was 43 years old when she drowned in the Pacific Ocean near Santa Catalina Island during a break from production of Brainstorm, a 1983 film that was set to be her comeback to Hollywood. She had been on a weekend boat trip to Santa Catalina Island aboard her husband Robert Wagner's 58-foot motor yacht. Other than the fact that she drowned, many of the circumstances surrounding her death remain unknown. There were just too many theories and not enough evidence to solve the case. For one, it was never determined how she entered the water. Wood was with her husband, a Brainstorm co-star Christopher Walken, and the captain Dennis DeVerne on the evening of November 28th. Authorities would then recover her body at 8 a.m. on November 29th, 1 mile away from the boat. First, Wagner said that she was not with him when he went to bed, but the autopsy report revealed she had bruises on her body and arms, as well as an abrasion on her left cheek. While there was no indication as to how or when the injuries occurred, DeVerne had previously stated that Wood and Wagner argued that evening. Again, Wagner denied such an argument took place. However, in his memoirs, Pieces of My Heart, Wagner later admitted that he had an argument with Wood before she disappeared. An autopsy also found that Wood's blood alcohol content was 0.14, and that there were traces of a motion sickness pill and a painkiller in her bloodstream. These two have been proven to both increase the effects of alcohol. The Los Angeles County coroner, Thomas Noguchi, ruled the cause of her death to be accidental drowning and hypothermia. According to their theory, Wood had been drinking and may have slipped while trying to reboard the dinghy. However, her sister Lana expressed doubts, alleging that Wood could not swim and had been terrified of water all her life. She also insisted that her sister would never have left the yacht on her own by dinghy. The question remains, what happened to Natalie Wood?
Grandfather, there's something I've got to tell you. Please don't be angry with me. But I can't marry Carlos.
Go on.
I know it's a great
Number 12, Carole Lombard. Best known for her work in screwball comedies, Lombard was a celebrated American actress who took the industry by storm. Her beauty, charisma, and top-notch comedic timing helped her stand out in the industry. She was also known for her marriage to Clark Gable, who was no doubt one of the biggest movie stars of the era. Her life, however, was tragically cut short at the age of 33 when she died in a plane crash in 1942. The crash occurred while she was returning to California from a war bond tour in Indiana. Lombard, who was deeply patriotic, had been on a nationwide tour to raise money for the U.S. government's war efforts during the Second World War. She had successfully raised over $2 million in war bonds, an extraordinary achievement that demonstrated her commitment to the cause. To get home, she boarded TWA Flight 3, a commercial flight en route from Las Vegas to Burbank, California. Shortly after taking off from Las Vegas, the plane crashed into the site of Mount Potosi, approximately 32 miles southwest of Las Vegas. All 22 passengers and crew on board, including Lombard and her mother, died. Number 11, the death of William Taylor. William Desmond Taylor was an Anglo-Irish-American actor and film director. All through his illustrious career in Hollywood, he directed 59 silent films and acted in 27 films. Sadly, at the age of 49, William Taylor met a tragic end. While his death has always been shrouded in mystery and uncertainty, the rumors would have you believe that it was at the hands of a mob hitman. To understand how he met his tragic end, let's turn back the clock to February 1st, 1921, a pivotal night that would forever alter the course of Hollywood's history. Taylor had just bid farewell to his girlfriend and esteemed comedian, Mabel Normand, at his Los Angeles residence. What started out as any other evening would become something of a horror movie the following morning. The morning after, Taylor's valet made a chilling discovery. He found the director's lifeless body sprawled in the front room, and there was a fatal bullet piercing his back. The LAPD jumped on the case. As you can imagine, Hollywood gossip columnists jumped on it too. Now, the more they delved into the case, the longer the list of potential perpetrators grew. Mabel Normand found herself under intense scrutiny. Apparently, she had been caught rifling through Taylor's belongings at the crime scene. Then came the discovery of blonde hairs on Taylor's jacket. This brought another female suspect by the name of Mary Miles Minter into the case. She was an upcoming starlet who had been rumored to be obsessed with Taylor. When the hair found on him matched hers, the tabloids had a field day with the introduction of this dramatic twist to the investigation. Edward Sands, a former servant of Taylor's, would emerge as another figure of suspicion. It was said that Sands was observed lurking around Taylor in the days preceding his demise, and that he absconded with a substantial sum of $5,000 from the director. But that was not the favorite narrative. It all takes a sinister turn as the investigation delved into the seedy underbelly of Hollywood, particularly its domain of organized crime and lucrative drug trade. You see, Taylor had been an advocate against drug abuse. Whenever he stumbled upon a Hollywood star involved in the nefarious activities of the drug trade, he would speak up about it. So another rumor presented itself. It was said that his fervent efforts towards a crackdown on the illicit trade was what truly sealed his fate. It is heartbreaking that Taylor's disruption of a drug empire may have prompted a powerful mafia head to dispatch a hitman that would silence him for good. Tragic, wouldn't you say?
Where is that villain, Captain Hook? I'll slice him up and throw him to that crocodile.
I guess Bobby Driscoll.
Number 10, Bobby Driscoll. Bobby Driscoll became one of Disney's most prominent child actors in the 1940s and early 1950s. His performances in films like Song of the South, So Dear to My Heart, and Treasure Island earned him significant acclaim. Interestingly, Bobby Driscoll was discovered at the age of 5 when a barber introduced him to his neighbor. This neighbor just happened to be a casting director. His natural acting ability quickly set him apart. He had expressive eyes and an endearing smile. He truly was a delight to watch. He made his screen debut in the 1943 film Lost Angel, but it was his role as Johnny in Disney's Song of the South that truly catapulted him to fame. Another significant role for Driscoll was as Jim Hawkins in Disney's 1950 film Treasure Island. In this film, Driscoll showcased his versatility and became an iconic figure in children's adventure films. Driscoll was adored by audience for his wholesome, relatable, and heartwarming performances, and his ability to convey a wide range of emotions endeared him to both children and adults. Let's not also forget that Driscoll was the ultimate Disney icon. As one of Disney's first contract players, Driscoll became synonymous with the brand's image of innocence and adventure. Sadly, this success came at the cost of a normal childhood. Driscoll faced intense work schedules that left little time for a normal childhood. The demands of continuous filming and promotional activities were exhaustive, impacting his education and social development. But the worst was yet to come. As Driscoll grew older, he faced the common issue of typecasting. The onset of puberty brought physical changes, including severe acne and a change in the tone of his voice. This greatly affected his screen image and led to a contract termination with Disney. Hollywood struggled to transition him from a child star to an adolescent or adult actor. Hollywood's reluctance to see him in mature roles limited his opportunities. The industry's preference for a particular look and type for child actors meant that as he aged, he no longer fit the roles that had made him famous. The abrupt end of his Disney contract in 1953 was a significant blow. This abandonment left Driscoll without the support and guidance he needed during a crucial period of his career and personal development. Later on, Driscoll's life was marred by legal troubles, including arrests related to his drug use. There were also financial difficulties, and he became increasingly marginalized by the industry that once celebrated him. Naturally, the abrupt end to his career contributed to his descent into substance abuse. To make this worse, he faced significant social alienation. The dramatic shift from being a beloved child star to being virtually unemployable was devastating. His attempts to revive his career were largely unsuccessful, and they led to further isolation and despair. So much that his life ended tragically. In 1968, he was found dead in an abandoned New York City tenement at the age of 31. His death was attributed to heart failure caused by his drug use. It was evident that he had been living in squalor. It was so bad that his body went unidentified for some time. Driscoll's tragic early death in 1968, largely forgotten and destitute, highlighted the stark contrast between his early success and later life.
Very fighting word, partner. Look how I from.
Number 9. Carl Switzer. Carl Alfalfa Switzer was an American actor best known for his role as Alfalfa in the comedy short titled Our Gang. His distinctive appearance and comedic antics made him one of the most recognizable child actors of his time. Sadly, his acting career waned over time, and his life took a tragic turn. But before any of that, Carl Switzer began his acting career in 1935 at the age of 7. He was cast as Alfalfa in the Our Gang series of short films produced by Hal Roach Studios. His character, Alfalfa, became a fan favorite due to his unique cowlick hairstyle, off-key singing, and comedic misadventures. We can't forget all of the schemes revolving around his crush on Darla and rivalry with other boys in the gang. One could definitely say that Switzer's portrayal of Alfalfa was central to the success of Our Gang. Unfortunately, he was so good at being Alfalfa that led to his typecasting and eventual decline. Isn't it ironic? Sure, Switzer gained fame as Alfalfa, but his association with the character made it difficult for him to transition to more serious acting roles as he got older. After leaving Our Gang in 1940, he struggled to find significant acting opportunities. Switzer appeared in a handful of films in minor or uncredited roles, such as It's a Wonderful Life in 1946, and even a smaller role in the 1953 John Wayne film Island in the Sky. As his acting career waned, Switzer pursued various menial jobs, including working as a dog breeder, hunting guide, and bartender. Despite his early fame, his adult life was marked by financial difficulties and personal struggles. Carl Switzer's life came to a tragic and violent end on January 21, 1959, when he was shot and killed at the age of 31. The incident occurred during a confrontation over money. Switzer allegedly borrowed $50 from a man named Moses Budge Stiltz, and during an argument at Stiltz's home over repayment, the situation escalated. According to reports, Switzer threatened Stiltz with a knife, leading Stiltz to shoot him in self-defense. Switzer was pronounced dead shortly after arriving at the hospital. The circumstances surrounding Switzer's death were controversial. The case was initially ruled as justifiable homicide, but over the years, some have questioned whether the shooting was truly in self-defense or if there was more to the story. However, no further legal action was taken. Number 8. Britney Murphy. Britney Murphy was a talented American actress and singer known for her versatility and effervescent personality. Murphy quickly rose to prominence in the late 1990s and early 2000s. Her career spanned film, television, and music. Britney Murphy was born in Atlanta, Georgia, but she soon found herself in Los Angeles when her mother decided she had what it took to be a star. From that tender age, she began to pursue acting. Murphy's first significant role came in 1991 when she was cast as Brenda Drexel in the television series Drexel's Class. This was followed by roles in other TV shows like Blossom and Sister Sister. Murphy's big break came in 1995 with her role as Ty Frazier in the iconic teen comedy Clueless. Playing the lovable but awkward new girl in school, Murphy's performance was both endearing and memorable, making her a standout in the film. It also helped that Clueless was a major success, so she was finally cementing her place in Hollywood as a rising star. Following the success of Clueless, Murphy transitioned to more varied roles in both independent films and mainstream Hollywood productions. She showcased her range as an actress in films like Girl Interrupted in 1999 and Just Married opposite Ashton Kutcher in 2001. The film was a box office hit, and her chemistry with Kutcher, both on and off screen, garnered significant media attention. Other notable films during this period included 8 Mile in 2002 and Uptown Girls in 2003. Murphy was booked and busy, but by December 2009, the world would hear some very unfortunate news. It was reported that Britney Murphy had died suddenly at her home in Los Angeles. She was just 32. The Los Angeles County Coroner's Office initially reported that the cause of death was pneumonia, with secondary factors of iron deficiency anemia and multiple drug intoxication. The drugs found in her system were all legal and consistent with over-the-counter medications or prescription drugs. Number 7. Judy Garland. Born Frances Ethel Gum, Judy Garland achieved stardom at a young age. Following her role as Dorothy in The Wizard of Oz in 1939, she was catapulted to international fame. This success only led to a series of successful films, concerts, and recordings to her name. Unfortunately, she was signed up by one of the strictest studios at the time. Garland's addiction issues can be traced back to her time at MGM Studios. The studio placed immense pressure on her to maintain a certain image and work schedule. To keep up with the grueling demands, Garland was given amphetamines to stay awake and work for hours without end, only to be given sedatives to sleep. This practice started when she was a teenager and in time led to a lifelong struggle with substance abuse. The constant use of drugs severely impacted Garland's physical and mental health. She experienced extreme weight fluctuations, exhaustion, and bouts of depression. Her personal life was tumultuous, with multiple marriages and financial difficulties all brought on by her addiction. Throughout her life, Garland made multiple attempts to overcome her addiction. She sought treatment on several occasions, but the pressures of her career and personal life made sustained recovery difficult. Despite these efforts, her addiction persisted until her death in 1969 at the age of 47. She died of a barbiturate overdose. How tragic is that?
What about it, ladies?
Better not.
Number 6. Marilyn Monroe. Famous for playing the stereotypical blonde bombshell characters, Marilyn Monroe solidified her position as a cultural icon. Monroe's early life was fraught with instability, including abandonment by her parents and time spent in foster homes and an orphanage. This traumatic upbringing likely set the tone for the emotional and psychological difficulties she faced as an adult. These unresolved issues may have fueled the severe anxiety, depression, and insomnia that Monroe reportedly suffered from. These conditions were not well understood or adequately treated at the time. Sadly, to manage these issues, she was prescribed a range of medications, including barbiturates, amphetamines, and sleeping pills. The medical community's approach to treating mental health in the 1950s and 1960s often involved prescribing such drugs without fully understanding their addictive potential. Monroe's addiction to drugs had a significant impact on her professional life. Her erratic behavior on set included frequent tardiness, forgetting lines, and sudden mood swings. While Monroe was one of the biggest stars in Hollywood, her addiction and the accompanying behavioral issues contributed to a decline in her career. Despite her public image as a glamorous star, Monroe was profoundly lonely. Her addiction further isolated her from those around her, as her erratic behavior and substance abuse created barriers between her and the people who cared for her. Monroe's drug addiction took a severe toll on her physical and mental health. Her reliance on barbiturates and amphetamines led to cycles of severe depression and mania, further destabilizing her already fragile mental state. On August 5, 1962, Marilyn Monroe was found dead in her home from an apparent overdose of barbiturates. Her death was officially ruled a probable suicide, though some conspiracy theories suggest otherwise. Regardless, her addiction played a crucial role in her demise. If you've made it this far, do hit the subscribe button and turn on the notification bell so you don't miss any updates from us.
Put your hands down. Put your hands down.
Number 5. Bruce Lee. Bruce Lee was a legendary martial artist, actor, director, and philosopher. Raised in Hong Kong, Lee became an icon of martial arts and is widely regarded as one of the most influential martial artists of all time. He popularized martial arts in films around the world and is credited with changing the way Asian characters were portrayed in Hollywood. Lee's films like The Big Boss, Fist of Fury, and Way of the Dragon, just to mention a few, remain classics in the genre. While his martial arts style continues to influence martial artists and athletes worldwide, Bruce Lee tragically died at the young age of 32, and the circumstances surrounding his death have been the subject of speculation for decades. The official cause of his death was cerebral edema, better put, swelling of the brain, but there were still numerous conspiracy theories and speculations. Some believe that Lee was killed by the Triads, a Chinese organized crime syndicate, while others think it was his lover, a Taiwanese actress, Betty Ting Pei, who poisoned him.
I am involved. We are all involved. Mom, a kid was killed tonight. I don't see how I can get out of that by pretending that it didn't happen. Well, you know that...
Number 4, James Dean. James Dean was an iconic figure in American cinema. His roles in Rebel Without a Cause in 1955, East of Eden, and Giant in 1956 earned him the status of a cultural legend. Despite his short-lived career due to an untimely death at the age of 24, his influence can never be ignored, because no matter how brief, Dean's career left an indelible mark on Hollywood. He was celebrated for his intense method acting style and his ability to portray complex, emotionally charged characters. His rebellious image, combined with his brooding good looks, made him a symbol of youthful angst and nonconformity. Dean had it all. The dashing good looks and an enviable career are still on the rise. Many believe he would have gone on to do more, but that was not meant to be. Sadly, Dean met a tragic and untimely end. Familiar with the notion of certain films being cursed? Of course you are. It's usually hard to miss when a series of tragic or mysterious events surround the production and release of a film. One film people have come to call a cursed film is Rebel Without a Cause. This 1955 film starred James Dean, Natalie Wood, Sal Mino, and a couple of others. Unfortunately, there would be subsequent tragic events and misfortunes that would be tied to it. You see, Dean died in a car accident just before the release of the film. According to the stories, most members of the cast all met tragic ends. We spoke about Mineo getting stabbed to death close to his apartment, and of course, Natalie Wood, who drowned off the coast of Santa Catalina Island under very mysterious circumstances. See why it's been tagged as a cursed film?
People are gonna come round if you keep shouting.
Oh my God.
It's really important if people come round.
Who's gonna come round, Simon?
Number 3, Anton Yelchin. Odd Thomas star Anton Yelchin was born on March 11, 1989, to a family of figure skaters in Leningrad, now St. Petersburg, Russia. His parents, Irina and Viktor Yelchin, were well-known Soviet athletes, but they immigrated to the United States when Anton was just 6 months old to escape anti-Semitic persecution. Growing up in Los Angeles, Yelchin developed an interest in acting at a young age and began taking acting classes as a child. Yelchin's career began early, with his first role at the age of 9 in the independent film A Man is Mostly Water in the year 2000. Yelchin's breakthrough role came in 2001 when he starred in Hearts in Atlantis, an adaptation of Stephen King's novel. At just 12 years old, Yelchin played the lead role of Bobby Garfield, a young boy who befriends a mysterious stranger. The film received mixed reviews, but Yelchin's performance was widely praised, marking him as a young actor to watch. As Yelchin transitioned into adulthood, he sought out diverse and challenging roles that demonstrated his versatility. His mainstream breakthrough came in 2009 when he was cast as Pavel Chekhov in J.J. Abrams' reboot of Star Trek. On June 19, 2016, Anton Yelchin died in a tragic accident at his home in Studio City, Los Angeles. He was found pinned between his Grand Jeep Cherokee and a brick pillar at the end of his driveway. He was only 27 years old. The accident was caused by the vehicle rolling backward, a known issue with the model's gear shift design. It was a tragic accident, and it dealt a significant loss to the film industry.
Don't think of it as a cigarette. Think of it as the thing that has been missing from your hand. When you're holding it, you feel right.
Number 2, Matthew Perry. Best known for his role as Chandler Bing on the iconic television series Friends, Matthew Perry was a heartthrob of the 90s. Matthew Perry's rise to fame began with Friends, which aired from 1994 to 2004. The show's immense popularity made Perry a household name and a highly sought-after actor in Hollywood. His comedic timing and memorable performance as Chandler Bing garnered critical acclaim and a large fan base. Perry was open about his addiction issues, one time admitting that it began with a Vicodin and pain medication addiction after a jet ski accident in 1997. His addiction then escalated to include alcohol and other substances. Despite his struggles, Perry continued to work on Friends, but his addiction eventually took a toll on his health and performance. His fluctuating weight and changing appearance during the show's run were noticeable signs of his ongoing battle. Perry made multiple attempts to overcome his addiction, entering rehab several times throughout his career. After Friends, Perry continued to work in television and film with varying degrees of success. He starred in shows like Studio 60 on the Sunset Strip, Mr. Sunshine, and The Odd Couple. While none of these projects matched the success of Friends, Perry remained a respected figure in the industry. Perry was only 54 when he died from the acute effects of a ketamine overdose on the 28th of October, 2023.
Daddy likes to tell stories. Mommy says he tells stories all the time.
Number 1. Judith Barcy. Judith Eva Barcy was born on June 6, 1978 in Los Angeles, California, to Hungarian immigrant parents Josef and Maria Barcy. Her mother, Maria, had dreams of becoming an actress, but instead channeled her ambitions into her daughter. Judith showed early signs of talent, and by the age of 5, she had already begun her career in show business. Judith's big break came when she was cast in commercials, quickly becoming a sought-after child actress. Her small stature allowed her to play roles much younger than her actual age, which added to her appeal in Hollywood. Judith soon transitioned from commercials to television and film roles. Some of her most notable appearances include guest roles on popular TV shows like Cheers, The Twilight Zone, and Growing Pains. Sadly, Judith's personal life was marred by tragedy. Her father, Josef Barcy, was an abusive and controlling figure. As Judith's career flourished, Josef became increasingly jealous and paranoid. He struggled with alcoholism and constantly made threats against his family. His abusive behavior escalated over time, and when Maria attempted to seek help, even reporting Josef's threats to authorities, her pleas for assistance were not taken seriously. On July 25, 1988, the unthinkable happened. Josef Barcy killed both Judith and Maria in their home before setting the house on fire and taking his own life. Judith was only 10 years old. Which of these would you consider to be the most tragic? Do share your thoughts in the comments. If you've enjoyed this video, don't forget to hit the like button. You also can't miss the next video on your screen.